He sat there every day, rain or shine, in the same spot. A small dog with tired eyes, patiently waiting. For long years passed, and his gaze never shifted from the road. His heart clung to the hope that one day, his family would return. People in the neighborhood whispered about him, called him the forgotten dog. But little did anyone know, the ending to his story would shock everyone and leave you in tears. Let me tell you the incredible story of Max, a dog whose loyalty stretched across time, even when everything seemed lost. Max's life began like any other puppy's. He was adopted by a family that instantly fell in love with his playful spirit and curious brown eyes. The Johnsons were everything Max could have ever wanted: a mom, a dad, and 2 kids who adored him. For the first few years, life was a dream. Max would wake up to the kids' laughter, go on long walks with the dad, and curl up on the mom's lap every evening. Summers were spent chasing balls in the yard, winters curled up by the fireplace. He was more than a pet, he was family. But one summer, everything changed. The family had to move to a new city for work, and they decided they couldn't take Max with them. It wasn't an easy decision, but they were convinced it was the right one. The family made arrangements for Max to stay temporarily with a neighbor while they figured things out. "We'll come back for him soon," they promised. They told him goodbye that afternoon, ruffling his ears one last time before driving off. Max stood at the gate, wagging his tail, thinking it was just another day. He had no idea that his family was never coming back. At first, Max wasn't worried. He was excited, thinking his family would return any moment. He waited by the gate for hours, his tail thumping happily every time a car passed by.
But they didn't come that day.
Or the next. Days turned into weeks, and Max's excitement slowly gave way to confusion. Why weren't they back yet? The neighbor, Mrs. Taylor, tried her best to care for Max. She fed him and gave him a place to sleep, but Max wasn't interested. He didn't want food or toys, he just wanted his family. Every morning, Max would slip through Mrs. Taylor's fence and run back to the old Johnson house, where he'd sit patiently by the front gate, waiting for their return. Even when Mrs. Taylor brought him back home, Max would sneak out again, always finding his way back to the same spot, his eyes locked on the road, hoping to see the familiar family car. Months passed, and the seasons began to change. Summer faded into fall, and the crisp winter air rolled in. But Max never moved from his spot. Snow fell, covering his small body, but he didn't seem to notice. He just sat there, shivering, waiting. Neighbors began to notice the dog, who never left the front gate. Some people felt sorry for him, leaving out bowls of food or blankets. Others tried to shoo him away, thinking he was a stray. But Max didn't care about anyone else. His heart belonged to the Johnsons. Every morning, he would perk up at the sound of tires on gravel, hoping it was the car he was waiting for. And every night, he would rest his head on his paws. Another day of waiting slipping away. Years went by, and still, Max waited. People in the town started calling him the dog with the sad eyes. No one knew why he was so loyal, why he wouldn't give up on the people who had left him behind. But there was something in Max's heart that wouldn't let go of the hope that one day, just maybe, his family would return. Then, one chilly autumn morning, 4 years after the day his family left, something happened. Max was in his usual spot by the gate, his eyes dull but still hopeful. That's when he heard it, the familiar hum of an engine. A silver car slowly pulled into the driveway of the old house. Max's ears perked up. His heart raced as the car door opened. Could it be? Could it really be them? A young woman stepped out, carrying a suitcase. She looked confused as her eyes landed on the small, trembling dog at the gate. Max stood up, his tail wagging cautiously. Something about her scent was familiar. It smelled like home. The woman crouched down, her eyes wide with recognition. "Max," she whispered, "is that you?" It was Emily, the Johnson's daughter. Now a young adult, she had returned to her childhood home to collect some things. She thought Max had been given away long ago, but here he was, waiting, just as loyal as ever. Tears filled Emily's eyes as she knelt down and called his name again. Max didn't hesitate. With a joyful yelp, he leapt into her arms, wagging his tail so hard it looked like it might fall off. For the first time in 4 years, Max felt the warmth of a hug, the kind only family could give. Emily sat on the porch with Max in her lap, tears streaming down her face. How could they have left him like this? How could they have assumed he'd be fine? She stroked his fur and whispered, "I'm so sorry, Max. I never knew." Max didn't seem to care about the past. His family was back, at least part of it, and that was all that mattered. His eyes sparkled with happiness for the first time in years. Emily called her parents that night, and they were shocked to learn Max had been waiting all this time. They never thought he would stay at the old house. They assumed he had found a new home. Guilt weighed heavy on them, and they knew they had to make things right. The next morning, Emily packed up Max's things and brought him with her to her apartment in the city. It took some time for him to adjust to his new life, but he didn't seem to mind. He was with someone who loved him, and that was enough. Max spent the next few years with Emily, making new memories and living the life he had always deserved. But even in his final days, Max never forgot the old house or the years he spent waiting. And when Max passed away peacefully in Emily's arms one spring morning, she whispered, "You never gave up on us. Thank you, Max." Max's story became a symbol of unwavering loyalty, a reminder that love can withstand even the longest separations. His story was shared across the town, inspiring others to cherish the pets they called family, because, as Max proved, dogs never forget the ones they love. This was the story of Max, the dog who waited for 4 years. His tale reminds us that dogs don't just live with us, they live for us. So, if you have a dog by your side today, give them an extra hug. They deserve it. And remember, some stories don't need words to be told, because loyalty speaks louder than anything else.